machine.
Cancer on the planet, gonna kill us.
No pipeline, no cry. No pipeline, no cry. We're gonna draw the line, draw the line, draw the line, draw the line. Sickening the children. We're gonna draw the line, draw the line, draw the line, draw the line.
We're here for a new world. And FERC is trying to stop that new world from being built. FERC is stuck in the past. FERC is stuck in the fossil fuel economy of the 19th and 20th century. This is the 21st century. It's time to get serious about the transition away from fossil fuels to wind, to solar, to the renewable energy sources, to conservation and energy efficiency, and a new culture for this country and the world that respects and sees the value and the importance of interconnection with the natural world. I want to bring people up to date on what has happened inside this FERC building with the 4 FERC commissioners. Last evening, about 6:15 p.m., after the workday was over, they put up on their website and announced that the open public meeting that they have been having for many, many years, every third Thursday of the month, that open public meeting was not going to happen. There will be no open public meeting today at FERC. Instead, however, don't despair. You can still see the 4 FERC commissioners meeting among themselves if you go to ferc.gov and click on the link. So it's kind of like, instead of an open meeting, there's a TV show as an alternative to the FERC, to seeing them. Now, there were some people who were planning to go into the open public meeting and observe it and actually say some things. There is no public, there is no possibility for people at these open public meetings to say anything. As things have evolved for a year and a half, members and supporters of BXC and other groups have been going into these meetings every month for a year and a half and have been speaking up about the necessity of FERC stop being a rubber stamp machine. Start listening to the people in the communities whose lives, whose livelihoods, whose health is being disrupted and destroyed by the pipelines and the compressor stations and the storage terminals and the export terminals that this agency is approving and has been approving for years and years and years. Because since there is no open public meeting, we won't be able to go in to observe and to say things. But here we are outside, and we'll have our own open public meeting.
It's such an so awesome to be out here, to see so many of my friends who are out here, Mike Tidwell, my addition to Flowers, there she is, Sister Lucy, all of you. So good to be out here at this time. I'm disappointed to hear that FERC closed its meeting because this is part of the Obama administration. And so for me to see that, it's very disappointing. And I'll get into a little bit of that when I discuss climate leadership, which is really my talking points for today. But I actually want to talk to my dear friends who are behind the line. When I was here last time for the amazing hunger strike, and saw many of you who were here at that time who literally didn't eat, I noticed that we had a lot of the same special police officers who I see, good friends who are on both sides and out in the streets. And they may not know. See, they may just say that, wow, these are those same people who are out here protesting, passing out pamphlets. They just making our job harder. So I kind of want to update the folks who are working inside who know this, but also the officers, because they're part of this rally too, because they can hear it. Yeah. So for them, they may not know that since we've started this, there were many projects that this group out here you see was protesting. One of the things that we were protesting was the Keystone XL pipeline. And they may not know, but it was a pipeline proposed by TransCanada, a very powerful corporation. And this little ragtag bunch of activists in the street, you probably say, man, they could not beat that corporation. And at that time, it was Secretary Clinton at the State Department and President Obama. And we mobilized thousands all over this country. And for those who are wondering how we did on that, the Keystone XL pipeline was canceled. This ragtag bunch you see here, because sometimes when you see these buildings, you kind of assume that those inside are very powerful, and you know, when you're a police officer, you're kind of standing guard, so you just kind of assume that those inside never lose. So I want to make sure that they know that they lost that time. Oh, I forgot. Also, they wanted to drill in the Arctic, and there's some ragtag bunch of activists got in kayaks. They were actually kayaktivists. And you may say, well, you probably are saying that they definitely beat that bunch. Well, no, they actually lost to that bunch too. They said Shell no, and they lost there as well. So you probably say, well, my goodness, they definitely have won. And I'm trying to think, because I would say maybe fracking in New York, but no, they lost on fracking in New York. They actually lost on a number of fracking projects. So, to be honest, the folks inside who you're guarding have lost a lot in the past 8 years. So you should be clear that what you're seeing out here today is winning and is working. Just so y'all know, at the booth down there and the door here, that you are guarding the losing team. It's kind of like guarding the Wizards right now who are sitting home in the playoffs, and that we are the Golden State Warriors today. And winning and won't stop winning. So we got to win for the next generation. That's right. I just thought y'all need an update. Y'all steady the doors. You see, y'all had an update on what's going on. But let me just say this in regards to FERC and why you're so important. And one thing for our movement that we have to do, which our next step is deal with climate leadership. The climate movement has for too long given away the term climate leadership to politicians and to commissions. And we have to change that process. Governor Jerry Brown can't discuss renewables on Monday and discuss fracking on Wednesday and still be called a climate leader. Prime Minister Trudeau in Canada can't discuss renewables on Tuesday and be an oil baron on Thursday and still be a climate leader. President Obama can't discuss stopping Arctic in the Atlantic but still have offshore drilling in the Arctic and the Gulf and can't be a climate leader. That's a reality. That's hard, but while these may be good folks, Democrat and Republican, they are not climate leaders until they recognize that we must transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. 100% renewable energy economy is the only thing that we can have. So I thank you all for being out here, for not allowing FERC to rubber stamp this process. I thank you all for being where you need to be, and we will continue on, and we are the winning team. Proud to the people.
If the pipeline companies have some kind of contest going on, who can build the most dangerous pipeline? And I think that Spectra might have won it hands down with this one. two earthquake fault lines, a bomb train, the Hudson River, and an aging, leaking nuclear power plant. So that's why I'm fighting. I'm fighting for our property, too. That's how I got involved in the first place. They've already come through, taken property by eminent domain, cut down the trees, made our wetland into a mud hole. But the more I find out about the fossil fuel industry and the more I find out about this criminal agency that masquerades as an arm of our government, I have to step up and put my body on the line.
Now I'd like to ask Mary Wildfire to come forward. Mary is from West Virginia. She's a longtime writer and activist, and she's here representing the Ohio Valley Environmental Coalition. Mary Wildfire.
Well, we're here today to talk about fossil fuels. You know, there's a couple things all fossil fuels have in common, whether we're talking coal or oil or gas. One of them is that all of these fossil fuels have myriad environmental impacts at the source and often along a whole transition. I could tell you all about the harm of coal with the mountaintop removal and the coal washing and the transportation and the aspects you haven't heard about, but we're not going to talk about coal today. We all know that oil has done hideous damage all over the world. Often, look at what's going on in Nigeria, where the people hit the hardest get no benefit at all from it. Then there's natural gas, where there are all the impacts at the sites where the fracking goes on, one of which is all around where I live, and then the pipelines and the compressor stations. And I'm not going to talk a lot about that either because I haven't been personally impacted, although I could be at any point. But I'm going to mention one thing that I find nobody talks about with the fracking and drilling, which is that at least in West Virginia and southwest Pennsylvania, we have what's called the split estate. That people who own land are not, as elsewhere maybe, landowners. No, most of them are surface owners, and somebody else owns the mineral rights, often a corporation. And I've met people who work for years to raise the money to buy the land, to build their own house, to put in their organic gardens and their livestock and all this. And then some company sends them a notice and says, we've decided we're going to frack on your land. We'll take out your hay meadow here. And they put in a well pad of several acres. They pollute the hell out of the place. They put in ponds. And at best, you can negotiate where on your property they will destroy it. You still get to pay the property tax for those acres.
So Mike Tidwell, Director of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks, Ted. Thanks for BXE and the Rubber Stamp Rebellion. You guys have really inspired so many people. And Reverend Yearwood, thank you as always. Lucy, such an inspiration. Great to be with old friends. I just want to ask you a quick question. How many of you live in Virginia? Anybody here live in Virginia? We got a few people in Virginia. Well, I got news for you. Your governor, Terry McAuliffe, on Earth Day, he planted a tree. He planted one chestnut tree. Now, we're going to come back to Terry McAuliffe in a minute, but I just want to tell you, he planted a tree. That's how environmental he is. How many of you live in Maryland? Okay, I do. A number of you live in Maryland. My first introduction to this bunch in this building, FERC, was fighting Cove Point, and a lot of people here fought with us to stop that export facility at Cove Point. The thing that we learned about FERC when it comes to gas and gas pipelines, the thing we learned about FERC over the Cove Point struggle when it comes to gas and gas pipelines and gas infrastructure is that for FERC, when it comes to the gas comes from nowhere and then it goes nowhere. It's just in between, in the pipeline or in the liquefaction facility. So FERC just doesn't know where the gas comes from. If they knew where the gas comes from, they'd love to, regulate it, do something about it. But they just don't know where the gas comes from. And then after you put it in a pipeline or you liquefy it and put it on a ship and send it to India and Japan, they don't know what happens to it in Asia, so they can't calculate the greenhouse gases. Well, when we were fighting Cove Point in Maryland, we did the numbers ourselves, and that liquefaction facility that they're building right now, criminally in Calvert County, will emit greenhouse gases equal to all of Maryland's power plants, current power plants combined. Just exporting it from Marcellus Shale to Asia, they're going to equal all our power plants combined. Now, that's being built. God willing, it'll never serve as an export facility because we're still going to stop it. Virginia. Let's talk about Virginia. Terry McAuliffe wants to build 2 massive pipelines from West Virginia into Virginia, down to North Carolina. He's asking FERC to approve it. These 2 pipelines, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and the Mountain Valley Pipeline, we crunched those numbers as well. And it turns out those pipelines are even worse than Cove Point. If you calculate all the methane leaking from the fracking, all the methane leaking from the gas, then the final combustion of that gas in Virginia and North Carolina, it is equal, in terms of greenhouse gases, to double all of Virginia's current power plants combined. These are climate change criminal projects. And Terry McAuliffe, we put out a report card 3 weeks ago. Chesapeake Climate Action Network did a report card where we gave the governor an F for supporting these pipelines. And we illustrated the science showing how much of a greenhouse gas emission problem it would be. And you know what the governor did 7 days later when we gave him an F for these pipelines? He went and planted a tree. One chestnut tree and posed for photographs to show how important trees are to our environment. Those 2 gas pipelines will wipe out 1 million trees just building the pipelines through our mountains of Virginia. So our message here today, my message here today for FERC, for Governor McAuliffe, is the time of greenwashing and planting trees is over. You need to stop tearing down trees to build these pipelines.
I'd like to now introduce Peter Nightingale from Rhode Island. Peter is active in the fight there against fracking infrastructure. He works with Fossil Free Rhode Island, and he's been with us all week. Peter.
Thank you very much. So let me tell you something about myself. I'm a physicist. I'm not being impacted by any of this stuff directly, but I used to do a lot of research. Now what I'm doing is I'm fighting this battle, and I'm calling it physics outreach.
All right.
And actually, I have to admit, they pay me very well for it. So I feel very responsible for using the money that the state pays me in a good way, and I'll hope that I live up to that expectation. Well, let me tell you something about what is happening in Rhode Island. It starts at the top. The top is Wall Street. Wall Street owns the White House, as you might have noticed. The White House has bought into gas as a bridge fuel, natural gas as a bridge fuel. So we stopped by Senator Whitehouse the other day. We've had lots of actions in his office in Rhode Island, but we stopped by his office here, and we invited him. Where are you, Senator? Well, he doesn't seem to be here. I am shocked. Senator, where are you? Well, we invited the senator to tell him 2 things, or ask him one thing and tell him another. What we were going to ask him is, you can lean on FERC to tell them to stop the plans for building a gas liquefaction facility in Providence. Now, if you look at what that facility will do, and you know the meaning of the word environmental racism, that's your prime example. And as a matter of fact, the EPA provides all the numbers you ever need. You can look them up. They have a website called Environmental Justice. You can punch in a zip code and look at the characteristics of who live near that facility. And they're people of color, they're minorities. It is environmental racism. What else can I say? So Senator Whitehouse could be here and could lean on FERC to tell them to stop. So then we have, I'll go down the hierarchy of criminals. So at the next level, we have our governor, Gina Raimondo. Gina Raimondo is a Democrat, but she is owned by Wall Street. Of course, aren't they all? And so Gina Raimondo has bought into natural gas as a bridge fuel. And the consequence is that she supports this power plant that Invenergy is going to build, or wants to build, in Burrillville. Well, the gas, of course, is supplied by nobody else but Spectra, and we've been fighting Spectra for years now. They expanded the compressor station. We've had one action after the other, and now somebody's going to use the gas. What a surprise! We never expected that that would happen. No, we didn't. So here we have this plant that is being built, or being proposed. They're not there yet. 1 gigawatt. It's a monstrous facility. And we will have to live with this thing for I don't think that I'll be around for another 50 years. But the current generation will have to live with that thing for 50 years. And instead of working for a green future, we are tying ourselves to this sinking fossil fuel infrastructure that we're expanding. Anyway, so that is our governor. Well, the whole state legislature, the top of this corrupt body, look up where their money comes. Open secrets. New York. No Rhode Island money, virtually. It all comes from out of state. And we know how that works. Well, they're in the pockets of the same industry. They support this project. And so I could go on and on and on. Let me tell you something else. What we're fighting here is a monster with many, many heads. A hydra, basically. You chop off one head, and in its place, 10 new heads pop up. And so what's happening in the Northeast, we're talking to people in Burrillville, we're talking to people across the border, because you know what? The laws of physics do not really care where the state boundaries are. That comes to a shock to the politicians, because they think that they make the laws of nature. Well, I have news for them. Actually, you know what? You don't. You just imagine. You're so self-centered that you've forgotten how the world works. So we talked to our friends in Uxbridge, which is just 20 miles north of Burrillville. They were planning another one of those mega, what did I say, mega? It's a gigawatt power plant. Excuse me, I get my megas and gigas confused. I shouldn't, I'm a physicist, I should know better. But anyway, it's a gigawatt thing, really, really big. People in Uxbridge said, you know what, you need a variance of the zoning laws. Well, go take a hike. They voted against it. So that is not going to happen. But then further, closer to New Bedford, I don't know how good your, what do you call that? Geography, thank you. How good your geography is. But close to New Bedford, there's a place called Acushnet. They are going to expand the gas liquid facility there, or planning to, by a factor of 10. And they want to grandfather that thing in. Well, okay, grandfather has a son that's a monster. I don't know where that fight is going, but it's still happening as we speak. Why I'm mentioning this is, well, let me mention one more thing, what is happening. There is Access Northeast. Access Northeast is actually a combination of National Grid, Eversource, and Spectra. We know those names. Those three criminal enterprises come together to build this expansion, which will have Burrillville's compressor station expanded once more, increasing the noise, increasing the pollution. You know the story. So this is one of the plans that they have, and it will be for export. I'll wrap up very quickly. My message to you is a very simple one. There is something called the 3.5% rule. People have studied when governments lose power, and governments are history when 3.5% of the population gets organized. There are, if you calculate what 3.5% is of the American population, that's 11 million people. 15 million people live close to fracked gas facilities. This is what we call a metastable state in physics. It means you do poof and the whole thing caves in. That's what's going to happen. We will win.
Yeah! We will win! We will win! We
like to introduce Linda Reich. Linda is from the upper Delaware region of New York and Pennsylvania, where she's been very active, fighting compressor stations, pipelines, fracking, etc. She's also been a biochemist for 40 years. Linda Reich.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Van's neighbor, truly from upstate New York. I want to tell you about the upper region of the Delaware River. The main stem starts in Hancock, New York, and travels 330 miles down to the Delaware Bay, which is bordered by Delaware and New Jersey. 16 million people drink water from the Delaware River. Much of the regulation of the Delaware River is done by the Delaware River Basin Commission, which has a representative from each of the bordering states and one representative from the president. The river contains a long, pristine region that is a national scenic recreation area. And the gas companies want to frack it and put 10,000 wells in there. Currently, the DRBC has a moratorium on fracking, but we need to press them and get them to change that to a ban on fracking. That's something we all need to press them to do. Ban fracking in the National Scenic Recreation Area.
Yes.
There are multiple frack line communities here. I'll just name them quickly. Sussex and Bergen counties in Pennsylvania have had new large diameter pipelines laid next to the old pipelines. Minisink and Way Yonda, New York are dealing with compressor station, meter station, pipeline, and the under construction gas-fired power plant, which could still be stopped if New York State denies the 401 water permit for the pipeline that would bring Pennsylvania fracked gas to that power plant. So that's something we're still working on. You guys can get involved. Google the CPV power plant, get on the click letters and file in the docket, whatever it takes. We have to stop that gas plant. Okay, so then Millennium Pipeline is doing a lot of what I've just told you about. They've invaded the region with infrastructure. And besides causing the regular health and economic and environmental problems in Minisink, their work is very poor. And there was, for example, a 100-mile length of pipeline that was shut down right after it was built because human errors at the weld caused too much methane leakage. And it was closed for 9 months to have every single weld inspected before it was allowed to be put online. There is also a home in Hancock, New York, that was destroyed so badly that Millennium actually moved the people away from there into a new house. Upcoming proposals include new and duplicate compressor stations of 20,000 horsepower at 2 sites. Now, these compressor stations in this region are really too close together. So this smells of future expansion, which has not been disclosed. We're trying to keep track of it, but FERC and the gas companies hide this information very well. Old remaining issues include unlawful construction in Milford, Pennsylvania, which has been documented in the FERC dockets that regulate this area by the Delaware Riverkeeper Network and by interveners. And we've had absolutely no response to the photographs and the technical information that we have used to document the illegal construction there. The most common way that I've seen that FERC fixes a new illegal construction is to issue a variance that the gas company can go ahead and have it. The secretive way that FERC allows new illegal construction is to keep the plans hidden from the public by classifying it as critical infrastructure. And then when you open the docket and try to read it, you're not allowed to see it. Or there's another way that they can cover up illegal work is by saying that it's being done under a blanket certificate, even when the standard for that doesn't cover minor work or repairs. So there's 3 Ds I've come up with about FERC, and I hope you all remember them. FERC is disingenuous. It operates with distortion, deception, and defective reasoning. And this is disgraceful, and we really have to stop it, and we have to ramp up our solar and wind installations.
In case you don't know, We have the most toxic marriage in the world going on in North Carolina. Let me explain. Governor Pat McCrory, I'm sure you've all heard of him, and Lynn Good, who is the CEO of Duke Energy, are in bed together in a very toxic, oppressive relationship that has kept our state locked down. And literally, I feel strongly that I can honestly refer to the state of North Carolina as a front-line state. I'm going to repeat that. We are a front-line state. We have no energy democracy. We live under a quartocracy or an oligarchy or whatever you really want to call it, because Duke Energy is the largest, and I really want you to understand this because most people don't know this. We live in the South. We're not Massachusetts. We're not New York. And I came from Boston 20 years ago. And it is horrifying to look at what they have done to our state. Duke's been there for years and years and years and decades. We have no other utility corporation that we can buy our energy from. Every month when I sit down to write those checks to Duke, I feel sick to my stomach. No kidding. I slam my fist down on the desk because they will not budge, because they are in bed with our political system. It's funded by the Koch brothers. It's written, the legislation is written by ALEC. The money comes from another multi-billionaire person named Art Pope. And they are a revolving door. Our governor worked for Duke for 27 years. Every single politician in our state is appointed by the governor, and all of them, in one way or another, you go straight down the hierarchy, our public health, our EPA, you name it, across the board. They have all worked for Duke Energy. And Duke, again, emits 2% of the total greenhouse gases in the United States. I want you to understand that. That is a hell of a lot of greenhouse gases. They are a killer of millions of people. And we have no choice. We have no other utility company that we can buy our energy from. And they've taken away the solar credits. They've made it illegal for any kind of third-party sales in our state. Okay? So we need your help. Duke Energy is a master at greenwashing. We were down there in front of their headquarters, and you know what? You walk up in front of the shareholders meeting, they have pictures of windmills. They have pictures of solar panels. They have brainwashed the people in North Carolina by telling us that natural gas is clean energy, okay? We've been on coal and nuclear for decades and decades. We've been fighting, and yeah, we did. We are getting our lovely coal-fired plant in Asheville transitioned to natural gas. But you know what? We don't need it, and we don't want it. And the other thing that they do with all their data, and this is really serious, they have a black box. And in that black box is all of the calculations and the mathematics and everything you want to call it that they use to justify their desire and their plan. Duke has something called the Duke Modernization Plan, and they have convinced the governor, doesn't take much to convince him because he's hand in hand with it, that we need 9 new natural gas-fired plants. And we can't cross-examine. There are lots of lawyers out here. We know what it means to be able to cross-examination. We don't have the right to even challenge what they have told us that is necessary. We don't need the energy at all. So it's a serious situation there. And we continue to protest. We continue to make our demands. we use theater, we use every handle of democracy that you could use in this country, and nothing has been able to really budge them. So what I'm going to do is tell you the only way I can understand half the shit that's going on with all these pipes is to draw a map. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a technical expert. And neither are most of the people in our state and in the world. But if you can look at this, you can see from Texas there's a pipeline called the Transco 2,000-mile-long pipeline. Okay? That's coming up from Texas. It's going to go straight through the southeast, and it ends up in New York. All right? What they want to do is bringing all the, there's so many companies, Kinder Morgan, Spectra, there's Williams, there's Energy Transfer. I have to write them down. I can't remember the names of all these corporations. Then they make up the names of all the damn pipelines. You've got the Sable Pipeline, you've got the Atlantic Coastal Pipeline, you've got the Mountain Valley, you've got the Atlantic Sunrise, you've got the Penn East. And the Atlantic Coastal is going to come right through from West Virginia down through the eastern part of North Carolina. That's what's going to feed our gas. We don't have the gas yet. They're building the infrastructure. If you can help us, you see, it's all one pipeline. But if you can help us stop, they want to reverse. What Transco wants to do is reverse the gas. As prices go up and it gets harder to sell, they want to reverse this, bring it down into our state through the Atlantic Coastal Pipeline. So I guess what I'm saying is all of these fights really do impact the use, the production of natural gas. It's really connected to our state, and we don't know what next steps. We've thought about having a solar disobedience campaign because we can't think of anything else to do except to say, okay, fuck you. We are going to sell solar to our daughter who lives in the barn next to us. We're going to send her megawatt of light, and we're going to get everybody else in the state to start doing that too.
Our state, our state, our state, our state.
Our speed.